الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it's an honor to be with all of you again at this Az-Zahra center, especially since we are celebrating and commemorating the birth anniversary of the Lady of Light, the greatest woman ever created, a role model for all, despite age, despite gender, Sayyida Fatimah Az-Zahra alayha salatu wassalam. Most of us have been taught and raised with this idea that the Ma'asumeen, the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, they're supposed to be role models. So normally when we're told that they're role models, the first idea that comes to our mind is their akhlaq, right? Their akhlaq, we hear their stories of how they gave charity, how they swallowed their anger, all these things, and we try our best to replicate that, although we'll never come to their level, but we try our best. One of the other dimensions that we're supposed to look to them as role models, which some would argue is even more important than their akhlaq, is their ibadah. Right? How much emphasis we put on this concept of tawassul, that they are this intermediary, this medium, they're interceding on our behalf. Not just after they pass away, but when they're alive, they are direct interceders for us because they're showing us you cannot get to Allah by yourself. So we will show you the way to get to Allah. I know some people have issues with this concept, but it's very, very simple. There's nobody and there's no place in the Quran and no riwayah that stops anybody from speaking to Allah directly, from asking from Allah directly. Right? Allah says in the Quran, multiple times, Udu'uni, call me, astajib lakum, I'll answer you, sure. But what we have to think about when sometimes we are questioned within Shiism and sometimes mostly outside of Shiism about people who say, why? Just ask Allah, why are you going through somebody else? What's the point? So look, if you think you have a good enough understanding of Allah, of your Khaliq, of your Rabb, then go ahead, ask that entity, no problem. But if you think that idea that you were told to by your parents, that the conception, the mafhum of Allah that you have in your mind, that you learned in madrasa, that you learned in Sunday school, if you think that Allah is the same as the Allah that's in the mind of Muhammadin al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then you and I have different prophets. If you think that that's the same Allah, then we have different prophets. There is no way that the Allah that I am calling to, you've been spending years in the Hawza, the same Allah that I am calling to is nowhere near the Rabb and the Ilah of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. There's no way, they don't even come close. So we're not telling anybody don't talk to Allah. No, talk to Allah. But if I recognize, or any of us here recognize, that the Ahlul Bayt have a closer maqam, level and daraja to Allah, they have a better understanding of Allah, a better relationship with Allah, then why wouldn't I ask by their haqq, through their right? Why wouldn't I ask Allah that way? Say, Allah, I don't understand you very well. I don't know you very well. I'm trying, but until I get to some higher level, let me ask you through the right, the wujud and the maqam and status of people who know you the best. Right? What's irrational about that? That's the most logical thing that a person can do. So our ibadat also goes through them. Not that it's to them, right? Na'udhu billah, of course nobody does that. But our ibadah is filtered through them. It's wasila, it's tawassul, it's simple. Now the Ahlul Bayt, they have aided us in different ways too. Maybe some people are uncomfortable of saying, bihaqq Muhammad, bihaqq Ali. Okay, fine. Right? You don't want to do that, no problem. But you and I are doing that anyway. If somebody doesn't use their names, بِحَقِّ مَعْصُومِين, whatever, fine, no problem. But when a person on, for example, Thursday night is reciting Dua Kumel, is that your words or the words of Mawla Ali? You're not using your own words, I'm not using my words, it's Imam Ali's words. I'm not doing my own ibadah. And I expect that the ibadah that I want to do has to be at such a level, it comes through these specific words. Right? We can wake up in the morning, we can want to build up that connection with Allah. And maybe, a person feels after their, Salatul Layl, as the uncle was saying before, their namaz shab, they feel this spiritual state, and maybe they reach out to Allah and they say something. Sure, that's good. But however I can think about and comprehend and talk to Allah that way, is it even remotely close to the words that Amir al-Mu'mineen uses in Dua Sabah? And I know this might sound a little controversial. I know many of us are connected with Dua Kumel. But even if you compare both those du'as, Dua Sabah is something else. Even from the Arabic, for those who know the Arabic, it's very complicated Arabic that Mawla is using over and over and over again, just talking about Allah. And if you have not ever read Dua Sabah, just one morning after Fajr, just try to read that dua. Right? When we've gone for Hajj, for example, and if you've gone for Hajj, may Allah accept. If you have not gone for Hajj, may Allah give you the tawfiq and the ability to go for Hajj. And if we've already gone, may Allah give us more opportunities to go for Hajj. There's the famous day of Arafah. And when those of us remember, we were there on Arafah, there's nothing wajib to do. There's no special ibadah, nothing. You're just supposed to be there, right? Waqf, mawquf, that's just to stay in Arafah, that's all you have to do. But if somebody wants to gain ma'rifah of their Rabb while they're there, you can recite your own words if you want, you can make your own du'as, or you can say, I'll take it to another level and I'll recite something like Dua Arafah of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. Right? So I'm not going to use my own words, my own weak sense of ma'rifah, I'm going to go through the Ahlul Bayt. Right? If I want to learn about the haqq and the rights of every single person, well, I can sit there and I can philosophize and I can think about it, or I can look at Risalatul Huquq of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam and get a perfect idea of what rights everything and everyone has over me and that I have over others. You see the pattern over here. For our path to Allah, this ibadah, this worship that we do, the Ahlul Bayt said, if you're not going to use our names, we'll give you words that you can use. Just copy and paste these words, that's all you have to do. Maybe one day you'll see how we spoke to Allah and you'll begin to change your lahja, your kalam, and the way that you speak to Allah too by this template that we've given you. Right? Now, what's the whole point of this introduction? If we were to think of the best way to do hamd, tahmeed, and praise Allah, which way would that be? Well, we could say alhamdulillah, it sounds simple enough, sure. We can try to think, okay, there must be some special dua that really praises Allah, right? I have to go and find that. But we don't have to search far, right? It's not in some very, very long dua, nothing crazy. It's not in a very special dua that can only be recited on certain nights or certain days or certain occasions. The best type of tahmeed that we can do has been mentioned to us by the Ahlul Bayt. They themselves are going to introduce to us which are the best types of ibadah for which situation, right? So, for example, we have a riwayah from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam, where he is reported to have said, مَا عُبِدَ اللَّهَ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ التَّحْمِيدِ أَفْضَلْ مِنْ. There is not a single way that an abd of Allah, a servant, a slave of Allah, can praise Allah, to do his tahmeed, to thank Him, to give Him this praise and hamd, nothing better than what? The tasbih of Bibi Fatima alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, we have many riwayat which say things like this, right? That are in this pattern of tafdeel. They say the afdal this. What is afzal? What is the most superior? And sometimes, if you're being an ultra-rationalist, like some of us might be, you might say, if I say something is the best or the most superior, then there should only be one, right? If I say, okay, the best poetry is this, or the best surah is this, well, I can't say 10 of them because then that's not the best anymore, right? You could say better, but best should only be one. So sometimes when people hear a hadith like this, they're like, okay, many times when the Ahlul Bayt, they say afdal, or the best of this, or the most beautiful of XYZ, they're just doing it for ta'keed. They're just emphasizing something and how important it is. Okay. So somebody might hear a hadith like this and say, okay, the tasbih of Sayyida Fatimah alayhi salam is important, but so are other things. There could be other ways you can praise Allah, sure. But the Imam knows this. And he knows that somebody might think this way, so he adds on something else to the rest of the hadith. He says, وَلَوْ كَانَ شَيْءٌ أَفْضَلْ مِنْ. If there was something that was afdal and more superior to the tasbih of Bibi Fatima, then لَنَحَلَهُ Rasulullah Fatima. Then Rasulullah would have gifted that instead to Bibi Fatima. Now, if we wanted to, we could spend time just talking about this hadith itself, about what this means about Rasulullah, about his relationship with Bibi Fatima, but that'll take a long time. I'm just using this as an introduction because I want to talk about this tasbih of Bibi Fatima for tonight, inshallah. Now, when we talk about the tasbih, first send a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Even without going into the fada'il, we all know that it has all these benefits. We all know the thawab, the ajr, the rewards that we get. And even though there's a lot of ibadat that we can do, a lot of extra stuff, right? A lot of extra credit Islam we can do, right? Special prayer, special dua, special a'mal. There is nothing that is more of an adat and a custom and a habit in the household of a true lover of the Ahlul Bayt and a true lover of Allah than the tasbih of Bibi Fatima, right? Even when we're feeling at our lowest, when we have no energy, no spiritual stamina, nothing. You see that a person barely can get through their salah, their namaz. They still feel strange getting up without reciting that tasbih, right? It's very difficult to get up and just walk away. You could. Tasbih is only mustahab, right? You don't have to. But it's very strange to say your last 3 takbirs, which is also mustahab, and then not do the tasbih. It feels a little incomplete for the salah, doesn't it? And it's something that we train our children in, don't we? There's plenty of other ta'qibat that are, for example, we recite, but usually those ta'qibat end up being recited more so in jama'at, right? Most of our households, some of you might be different, but most of these special du'as, we wait for the center to recite it. We don't really do it at home. Right? There's very few people who have, let's say, the dua after Fajr, after Maghrib, Isha, Dhuhr, Asr memorized. Many people don't. Or the daily ziyarat that you can recite. Not a lot of people have that memorized. That's okay. But tell me, show me a real Muslim, a real Shia that doesn't have this tasbih memorized, right? It's simple formula. And even a child, their parents will try their best, hopefully lovingly, not too angrily, lovingly try to get them and encourage them that, yeah, make sure you recite this tasbih before you get up and go do whatever you have to do. Okay. Most of what we learn or hear about the tasbih has to do with the rewards and the benefits and the method and all this. Now, there's another part that I want to focus on for tonight, which is the actual history of how this tasbih came to existence in the first place. Right? We call this the tasbih of Sayyida Fatimah, right? And as we just mentioned before, hopefully most of you already know the story, that this was a gift from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam to Sayyida Fatimah alayhi salam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Maybe some of you have heard it in a lecture or you've read the books, right, about what the story was. In case you have not, I'm going to share the story, but it's not just for the sake of sharing it. There's going to be a reason for that. And the reason is, as much as we can talk about the tasbih itself, I actually think that it might be even more important to talk about and analyze the story of how it even came to the hands of Bibi Fatima in the first place. Right? Whenever we see these historical events, sometimes we read this, well, Imam Ali did this in battle, or XYZ happened to Imam Hussein, or any of the Imams. We quickly just run past it. But these incidents have a lot of importance, and you can open them up, and our ulama have done so. So, before I give the story, there are a few different versions that are out there. So in the books of the Ahlul Sunnah, they obviously know that this was a gift from Rasulullah to Bibi Fatima, so they have it reported as well. Their versions are a little bit different, not too much, but it's a little different. In our books too, we have a handful of variations of the story. The general points are the same, but there's a few details which are different. So again, this is not some place for academic lectures. I'm sure you're not interested in that, especially on a wilada. But just for your background information, the version that I'll share for tonight is probably one of the most famous ones, arguably one of the more accurate ones, but if you've heard something different, it's okay, right? Don't go crazy afterwards. Don't kill me after we're done. It's not a big deal. There's a few different versions. We have this in history, right? It's very rare where you only have one version of how things happen in history. Very rare. Okay. So now let me, again, go through the story and just pay attention yourself. Now again, maybe you've heard it before, but this time I want you to listen with different ears. And I want you to actually do something which maybe we're not used to doing, but I'm giving you ijazah to do it now, is listen with critical ears. If you hear points that seem strange, I want you to pay attention to that. And inshallah, we'll try to go through this piece by piece. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So in this version, it's being narrated by himself, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. So he is narrating, he's stating that once he comes home, and he says, I saw the great difficulty and the troubles which my wife, Fatimah al-Zahra, was going through in her household duties. And most versions start off like this. Imam Ali notices how difficult the duties are in the household. In other versions, there's specifics. Even in the Sunni version, it's specifics. That Imam Ali said, I saw blisters and blood on the hands of my wife. Right? That's how difficult her chores were. And later on in the hadith, she'll mention some of these things as well to herself. It says, so I noticed how difficult things were for the household duties for Fatimah al-Zahra. And also, since I also have been given information that the Muslims had recently gone to war and they had brought back some captives of war. Now, again, this is another topic, but when spoils or people were taken from war, these prisoners of war were taken, different things happen. Sometimes they would convert to Islam and then they would go off and be free. Sometimes they'd be kept as prisoner. Sometimes they'd be used as teachers. And sometimes they'd be used in the households of Muslims as what we would call slaves or servants, something like that, right? It's a very normal thing that people would do back then. Although obviously in today's ears it sounds a little strange, but that's a very normal thing. So Imam Ali says, I know that they went to battle recently, and I know that some prisoners of war, some war captives were brought back. So I knew that because of this, I told my wife Fatima, why don't you go to your father and ask him for a helper for the chores around the house? Meaning, because Rasulullah is taking all these, he's given initially these spoils of war, these war captives, these prisoners, these slaves. Now he will start giving it out to different people. So he'll keep some in his house, he'll give some to other companions. So Imam Ali is telling Bibi Fatima, go and ask your father for one of these servants to help out in the house, right? Such a person, he tells her, such a person will help you, and through this, some of your efforts and energies could be spread to someone else, and you can be doing other things. So Bibi Fatima then goes to her father, goes to Rasulullah. When she gets to his house, she notices that he's already sitting with a group of people. This hadith doesn't really say who it was, what group it was, what tribe it was. It doesn't say anything. But we can imagine it must be some elite group, some tribal elders, people who are important. He's doing some sort of da'wah and tabligh, right? There's something important going on, some meeting. So when Bibi Fatima sees this, she doesn't say anything. She notices that, okay, something important is happening, so she leaves right away. She doesn't even say anything to Rasulullah. But Rasulullah did notice that she had come by and then left. So it kept on his mind. So he noticed, right, the hadith continues, the Prophet noticed that his daughter had come to him for something that must have been important. So the first chance he got, which was the next morning, he went straight to their house. So he goes to Bibi Fatima, salam alaikum, alaikum salam. Why did you come to see me? Why did you come to the house the other day? What is it that I can do for you? What do you need? But initially, the hadith says, Bibi Fatima was a bit shy. She felt a little shame in asking. So Rasulullah just keeps pushing her. No, tell me, it's okay. Ask me, what do you need? So first she asks and kind of mentions it indirectly. She says, you know that there are a lot of duties in the house. Water must be brought. Now, water must be brought, meaning not from the tap, right? There's no taps over there. So where are they getting it from? From a well, right? Wells sometimes are close to your house, sometimes they're not. And it's not an easy thing to do. Right? I don't know how many of you ever gotten water from a well. I'm sure most of you haven't. But that bucket has to be lowered down. The water is put in there, and then you have to pick it up. That's a lot of exercise, right? Triceps, shoulders, right? It's not an easy workout. So the water has to be brought. The wheat has to be ground into flour, right? On a proper mill, right? You have the two stones. You put that flour in the middle, and then you grind it up into flour, right? So most of the riwayat, when they talk about her hands having blisters and being cut, it's from grinding this wheat into flour. The house must be swept, and all the other things that have to be taken care of, right? So she just starts mentioning one by one all of these things. Upon hearing this, Rasulullah became very, very distressed. Which father wouldn't be distressed when he hears that his daughter is going through all these difficulties? And then Fatima, when she then notices, right, what happens to Rasulullah, then she continues and says, finally, I came to see if you could give me a servant to help in the household chores so that I can share some of the toil and struggles. Notice, she doesn't say, everything is going to be delegated to this slave. I'm going to share. We're going to delegate responsibilities. I'll be sharing the responsibilities. So then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, shouldn't I guide you and direct you to a guide and a helper which is even better than what you're asking for? I mean, you're asking for a servant. I can give you something better. Do you want that? And of course, she's like, yeah, but of course, yeah, give me something better. So then, at this point, this is where Rasulullah teaches this tasbih, special tasbih to Bibi Fatima. And because it was gifted to her like this, that's how it became known as the tasbih of Sayyida Fatima alayhi salatu wasalam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And then tells her that there are specific times where you should be reciting this. So one time, hopefully, the most famous time that we should be reciting it is when? After every salah. Right? That's the most famous time. But there's another time mentioned in the riwayat as well too, which is before going to sleep. That's also mentioned in this hadith. Right? So it's good for us to be in the habit. We're already in the habit, most of us, after every salah. Let's try our best to also do this before we go to sleep. Most of us, hopefully, ourselves and maybe with our kids, we're getting them in the habit of maybe, reciting 4 Qul, Surah Fatiha, Ayatul Kursi. Throw this on the list too. You're already sitting there for like 10, 15 minutes reciting all this. What's another 2-3 minutes of reciting a tasbih with them? Right? Okay, so that's the story. Right? That's what's going on. Now I want to analyze this piece by piece, but we want to do it from 3 different perspectives. The first is from the narrator, who is himself, Mawla Ali. Then from the perspective of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, and then finally from the perspective of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Salawat al Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So first we go to the person who's narrating, Imam Ali alayhi salam. He is the wali, right? He is the leader of the house. He's the husband, the father of their children. When we hear this idea of being a wali, of being a husband, of being a father, of being a caretaker, of managing the house, what ideas come to our mind? We're thinking of, I have to provide, right? That's what I have to do. I've got to provide an income for the house, which is then given to my spouse, my wife. It's given to my kids, right? That's what it's for. I have to put a roof over their heads. I have to make sure they're protected. I have to make sure they have something to eat. I have to make sure they get clothes. If they need to get somewhere, I have to provide them with that. These dunyawi physical things, that's what comes in our mind when it comes to being a wali or a father or a husband, right? That's the ideas. Right? That's what we're thinking. What Imam Ali alayhi salam in this hadith is showing us is that that's fine, that's good, but that's the bare minimum. That's just the wajib stuff. But there's a lot more that every single one of us, fathers and husbands, those of us who claim to be a wali in a household, there's a lot more that we have to look out for and take care of as well too. Our job is not just physical protection and physical caretaking. It's also emotional well-being of the household. We have to protect that too. The spiritual well-being of the household, that's our job too. The intellectual growth of the household, that's also our job. If something is off in any dimension of the house, it's the job of that wali, of that father, of that husband to notice it and to immediately do something about it, as whatever's within their ability and power. See, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he notices and sees that this is what Bibi Fatima is going through. She doesn't say anything herself, at least in this version of the hadith. He is the one who comes and he notices what's going on in the house. It's her sabr, or her own tawakkul, or whatever her maqam and level is, that she doesn't say anything right away. But it's Imam Ali's maqam and level and ma'rifah that he comes and sees it and tries to do something about it right away. And for all of us as fathers, we have to hopefully remember, especially those of us who come from the East, who come from a traditional background where we divide up gender duties in a certain way culturally. Not Islamically, but we do it culturally. Right, where women take everything in the house, they do everything there, cooking, cleaning, taking care of the kids, all of this. And we say, look, I go out, I'm working 9 to 5, 8 to 4, doing all this, so I expect the house to be a certain way when I get home. Now, this might be culturally fine and accurate for many of us, but this is not Islamically accurate. There is zero obligation for a wife, for a mother, to do any of this in the house. There is no wujub, no obligation to cook, no obligation to clean, no obligation even to take care of kids, none of that. And in fact, and I know some of the men are looking at me like, don't tell them that right now. But if a wife or a mother decides that she wants to do all of these things, to cook, to clean, to take care of the kids, all of this, she actually has the right to ask for payment for it too. It's mentioned very specifically. She can say, no, I want to be paid for this. And right? Either the husband will have to do it themselves, or if the wife is asking, pay the wife, or hire somebody else to do all of this. No, I'm not saying that women, you should be asking for this, right? Right? The marriage contract, the nikah that we have is not just about rights and rules and all this. It's about achieving a higher status, right? Going through this highest level of marriage, which we see between Rasulullah and Bibi Khadija, or Imam Ali and Bibi Fatimah, right? That's what we're looking for. Well, we're not sitting picking who's right and who's this and that. No. We're trying to be the best versions of ourselves as possible, trying to sacrifice as much as possible. That's the ideal. But it's also helpful to know what are the bare minimum rights. What rights do I have or not? It's good to know this as well too, right? So wives, mothers, they're not meant to do everything. And most of us know that in this society, in the West, normally we love to put the West on a pedestal. The West, it's probably more difficult to survive and thrive as a wife and a mother than it is in the East. Because as many of you remember and know, in the East, they still have a system where you're going to get assistance in the house. These obligations, these duties are outsourced to other people. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two, and in some individuals, depending on which country and depending on your income level, sometimes you have a whole team, right? And one of my relatives in Karachi, when I was growing up, obviously I was confused by this, but I noticed this. I saw that some people had people who came and cooked, or some people who came and cleaned, and okay, fine. But then I noticed that there was a person who was like a head of all the other caretakers in the house. This person was managing everybody else, and this person, right, managed the driver of the house, for example, and this person who was the caretaker had his own driver too, which I thought was strange. Like, there's a whole team dedicated to all of this, right? But that's how some places are. So, in this place, in the West, the system doesn't really exist, right? Sometimes people might have a cleaner that comes maybe once a week or once a month or something like that, maybe. Sometimes in order to, let's say, alleviate the burden of cooking, hopefully sometimes we might say, let's go out to eat or let's order in, something like that. But we don't have this system where so many of these duties are being outsourced, where the wife and the mother has time to, let's say, relax or take care of herself or to build her spirituality. Right? These kind of things don't exist. In fact, it's the opposite. It's become so bad that now what do we have? What's the standard in almost every house? It's a two-income house, that both of them have to work, and even that income sometimes is not even enough. So however much we might want to put the West on a pedestal, I don't think it's like that when it comes to maintaining a holistic peace of mind in a home. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So this is the first point we keep in mind. A good father, like Imam Ali, is keeping an eye out, is aware of what's happening inside the house. Are things getting too difficult for my wife? Are they getting too difficult for my kids? Are they emotionally overwhelmed? Are they stressed out? Are they anxious? I've got to take care of it. It's my job. Right? May Allah give us all the tawfiq to be able to have that ma'rifah and awareness of our households. And then the second part is what? Imam Ali doesn't just notice it and say, oh, that's too bad. He says, one piece of the information is I see what's happening inside the home, and I also have information about what's happening outside too. He says that I've recently been given information that there are these, spoils of war, these war prisoners that have come. And putting two to two together, he says, why don't I tell my wife to go ask her father to get one of these and they can help out in the duties at home. So the second part of how we do this is we have to be, goal-oriented and solution-oriented too. It's not enough to just complain, to know that problems exist. We have to be aware enough of our societies to figure out what are practical, pragmatic ways of actually solving these problems. Maybe, as again, just an example, maybe because of my income level, getting a cleaner all the time is too expensive. I can't do that. I can't afford it right now. Maybe, ordering out a lot might be a bit too much, right? Some of us can't afford that constantly, and there's a lot of work. So, okay, let me be, what can I do then? Maybe, again, using our kind of modern day examples, maybe that means, okay, I need to do some research and figure out and get one of these robot vacuums, right? Something like that. It's a simple strategy, a simple thing, but it might help out. So that simple daily tasks like that can be outsourced to this robot, right? Now I know that some of you know that these big tech companies are actually creating these full-on robots to do tasks. I'm not encouraging that at all, right? As somebody who's grown up in the 80s and 90s, I've seen enough movies to know that you don't want these robots running around in your house. It's a very dangerous thing, right? I know most of you don't know what Skynet is, but I'm very, very afraid of Skynet. So if you don't know what that is, it's okay, no problem. But we have to figure out what are the possible solutions for all these issues that exist. So we have to have awareness, We have to have the knowledge of this and seize these opportunities that Allah is putting in our way. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Another final point about Imam Ali alayhi salam here is, if let's say we took out the names of Imam Ali and Bibi Fatima from this hadith, we were just to say I came and I was sharing, hey, I'm dealing with a couple right now, and the husband comes home and he says, and his wife tells him that there's too many duties, it's becoming very difficult for me at home. There's so much to do. What would our normal answer be? The husband then has to step up, right? The husband has to do more. Imam Ali helped out at home, so you should help out as well too. You come back from work, right? Don't sit down, don't relax, you need to help out. You need to do some cooking, some cleaning, some sweeping, do some of this too. This is the typical answer in the modern day that people give. So my question is that, how come Imam Ali doesn't offer to help? Imam Ali, right? When he sees that there's difficulties that his wife is going through, why doesn't he say, okay, then I'll step up my efforts, I'll help out getting the water, I'll help out sweeping at home, I'll grind the flour. Why doesn't he say this? Now, there's a lot of different reasons here. This is where I said I want you to think critically about some of these things. And it's okay to, ask these questions. Well, number one, we already know that whatever Imam Ali alayhi salam was able to do, he's going to do in the first place. We know that, especially in these times when the Muslims are still going out and fighting to war, Imam Ali is also going out to some of these battles and he's engaging in war too. Now, I don't know how many of you have gone out to war, gone out to battle. It might be a little difficult to come after, killing all these munafiqeen and kuffar and come back and still have energy left to do all these duties, right? It might be a little difficult. Let's give Mawla Ali the benefit of the doubt there too. And we could probably assume that whatever little bit of energy he had left, he must have been helping out in whatever regard he was too. Now, some of us, the point for us is yes, if we have enough energy and stamina to help out, we should be helping out at home, obviously, right, inside the home. But if we are truly exerting our effort, maybe we wouldn't have enough energy left at home to do anything, like Imam Ali. Maybe we would be completely exhausted from what we're doing. There's a huge difference between somebody like Imam Ali going out to battle, doing all of this, serving and taking care of Rasulullah, doing everything that he's doing at that time, versus you and I, who are maybe sitting in an office, in a cubicle, behind a desk all day. You can't compare the two. And I know that you stare at a screen for 8, 9, 10 hours and brain gets drained, you come back. I know, I've done the same work too. It drains us. But when you compare it to Imam Ali alayhi salam's work, it's nothing. We're sitting there in an AC, temperature controlled, heat controlled building. Imam Ali is sitting outside, outside working up a sweat. So sometimes it's humble. We should humble ourselves and look at the difference in work ethic between the Ahlul Bayt, their companions, and people like you and I. Again, I'm not assuming or judging anybody here. Maybe some of you are into blue-collar work and labor, and it is intensive for you, and you come back and you might be tired. Sure. Then maybe for you, you cannot offer up anything else at home. You might be too tired. That makes sense. And it might be the case that if you were to even lend a hand at home, it might interfere with your work outside because you might be too tired and then it affects your income. Okay, maybe that's possible. But a person has to really reflect and think, okay, am I so tired, so exhausted, so drained that I can't, let's say, wash a few dishes or load a dishwasher or unload a dishwasher or whatever, turn on a vacuum, anything like that? Is it that difficult? Some of us, we embellish and exaggerate how much, difficulty that we're actually dealing with in the outside world. So we have to be a bit more humble and honest with ourselves that no, maybe I do have another 1, 2, 5, 10% left to give, and that I need to make sure to give at home, especially if I notice that my spouse, my wife, the mother of my children, is going through a lot of difficulties. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, so now we shift from the perspective of Imam Ali alayhi salam to Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. So, Imam Ali tells Bibi Fatima that why don't you go and ask your father, right, for help around the house through one of these servants. Again, we can say, Ya Mawla Ali, why don't you go ask Rasulullah? You're not helping out extra at home? You're not going to ask Rasulullah yourself? Why are you delegating this to her? It's because we know Mawla Ali, if he has wisdom in an action, he has to engage in that wisdom. Who do you think has a better relationship with Rasulullah? The cousin, the son-in-law, or is it going to be the daughter, Abiha? Who's going to have a better relationship? Of course it's Bibi Fatima. There is no one with a greater relationship to Rasulullah than Sayyida Fatima alayhi salam. So Imam Ali himself is saying, look, I could go directly to Rasulullah, I can ask him for these hajat, but instead I'll do tawassul and I'll make my wife go and ask Rasulullah instead. Because he knows that she has a closer relationship and this is more likely to get a better answer. Right? So it's just wisdom that he's using over here. Now, see how beautiful this is too. That Imam Ali alayhi salam is comfortable enough. He has a good enough and strong enough relationship with his wife and with his father-in-law to say, yes, why don't you go ask my father-in-law, your father. Many of us, our relationships with our in-laws are nothing like this. We might even feel offended if, let's say, our spouse says, why don't you ask my parents or why don't I ask your parents? Sometimes we cut off our relationship with our family, families after they get married. Why are we doing something like that? Why aren't we always there as a support system so that it could come to this stage where my son or my daughter, my son-in-law, my daughter-in-law, has enough of a strong relationship and connection to me and can be openly communicative with me that they can come and ask me for things that they need. What's so wrong about that? Do I want them to go and take some interest-based loan? No, why would I want them to do that? Do I want them to go and benefit for somebody else? No. If I can help them out, why wouldn't I want to help them out? If Allah's given me enough rizq that I can share it with them, then why wouldn't I do that? I was already doing it when they were in my household. Now that they're out of the household, why does that have to change so much? Okay, something for us to reflect on. When she comes now to Rasulullah, when she sees that Rasulullah is already with a group of people, now she could think, look, my husband, my imam, my wali gave me an order. I should be able to just do this. I should interrupt and go and say what I have to say. But she notices that no, what the Nabi with my father, what the Rasul is doing is going to be important than whatever need and want that I have. So her hajat, her need, her khahish gets secondary. She just puts it to the side. So what's a point for us to think about? When we come to a markaz, a center, an imam barga, Husayniya, a masjid, these are places of khidmah, of service, right? And when we say that they're places of service, there's two different ways that we should see it as service. One of them is the right way, one of them is the wrong way. The right way is that it's a place of service, meaning I come and I serve my fellow mu'mineen and mu'minat. I come and I say, I'm a khadim of this place, what can I do to help? That's what a person should do. The wrong way is to come in and say, okay, now do my khidmat. Serve me, right? Take care of me. Give me food, give me chai, help me out financially, help me out emotionally, help me out intellectually. I'm here with my hands out, give me something. This kind of person will go and complain all the time. Why is the program like this? Why isn't it like this? Where I came from, it was always like this. You have to change it now. I don't like the way that this is happening. I don't like these speakers, these people with long hair who come and speak. I don't want to hear these kind of people. I want this language. I want this. People just come with their shikayat, their complaints, laundry list of things, like they're dealing with customer service, right? Like a Karen of the masjid. I don't know if I can use that term, if you know what I mean, right? That's what the people do, just complain all the time. Never do they lift a finger, never do they offer to help at all. All they want to do is shikayat, complaint. Now, alhamdulillah, that people will grin and bear it and swallow their pride and say, okay, no problem, we'll take care of you. We'll try our best to take care of you. But one of these people will help serve and build and grow their community. The other one will help bring it down and lower and lower. What Bibi Fatimah alayhi salam is showing us is that when you come to a place where many people are going to be served, it's not just me, that my needs should become secondary. I might prefer a language, I might prefer a certain style, I might prefer food, whatever it is. I have preferences, we all do. But when I come in and think to myself, my preferences, does it represent the majority? Does it represent what is Islamically beneficial for this community? Or is it just a personal egotistical preference that I have? In psychology, they have this idea of self-image bias. Anybody ever heard that term before? Self-image bias is basically like, for example, let's say right now, I say, you know what? You need to turn down the heat because it feels too hot in here. Everybody's burning up in here. Put the heat lower. Or put on the fans, put on the AC. My assumption is that everybody feels the exact same temperature that I do, so everybody's going to be the same. And sometimes we do that without even thinking. That everybody must think like me, feel like me, want to do aza and azadari like me, grow Islamically like me. And I'm just going to do that and assume that everybody wants that. Parents do this in a micro version in their households. The way that I connect with the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, my kids have to do the exact same thing. If I'm into poetry, I might encourage my children to get into poetry too, but maybe that's not these love languages, maybe that's not their love language. Or maybe I enjoy reciting Quran just in the Arabic. I don't really care about translation so much or tafsir. It's not a big deal for me. I just like the qira'ah, right? Tajweed. I just like the beautification of the Quran, just to recite it like that. But maybe my child says, no, I want to know what the Quran says. I want to read the translation. I want to know the tafsir. I want to know all these things. Okay, so our connection is different. I should encourage all of these. My job is not to make a clone of myself into my child, right? To live vicariously through them. My job is that Allah has given them specific khususiyat, specific qualities. I have to nurture these qualities. I can encourage different things and see which one connects with them, which one helps out. And maybe my child becomes holistic and they're into many different things, but maybe they only connect in a certain different way, and my job is to do that. But that requires me to swallow my pride and to put my ego aside. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So we want to make sure that we don't let our ego and our needs supersede the overall community needs, right? We have to be very, very careful of that. Now we only have a few minutes left. Final point, now we jump to the perspective of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So Rasulullah, he notices and he sees that his daughter had come. Now obviously he was busy in this meeting, so he couldn't go right away. But the minute he can, he runs to the house of his daughter. Now when he goes there, his daughter has a khaish, has a haja, has a desire, has a need. Now what does Rasulullah do? Obviously he can take care of it and say, fine, here's so-and-so's servant or slave, fine. But what does Rasulullah offer? He says, don't you want something better? Now there's two interesting points over here. One, for many of us, when something is requested or asked of us, let's give a simple example. Let's say you come across somebody, whether over here in any of your cities, or maybe you go overseas to the places of ziyarat where there's a lot of fuqara, homeless people, those who are in need. And they say, can I have whatever, certain amount of money, right? Let's say over here they say, can I have $5? And they say, okay, fine, here you go, $5. And we pat ourselves on the back that I did a good thing. A mu'min doesn't just give and answer the request of somebody. They say, let me do you one better. Let me do something better than what you've asked for. Right? You ask for 5, I'll give you 10. You ask for 10, I'll give you 20. You ask for 20, I'll give you 100. Right? Something like this. To show somebody that, look, and this is not even coming from me, this is from Allah. So this is not even my property in the first place. I'm just sharing what Allah has given me. So this is what a mu'min does. They always give better than what the person has requested. Even in something simple. Maybe it's not financial. Maybe it's in something simple like salam. When someone says, salam alaikum, what is it recommended for us to do? Is to reply with at least one better. So if they say salam alaikum, then I say wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. If somebody says salam alaikum wa rahmatullah, then I can say alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Even there, we're supposed to try, right? We're constantly in competition, right? Just try to one-up people. It's okay to do that, right? We're supposed to be doing that. So if somebody asks and requests, we should be in this habit of trying to do something better. But what is interesting too is that Rasulullah doesn't just say, no, I'm just going to give you something else. He says, do you want something that's better or not? Maybe Bibi Fatima says, no, I don't want something better. I want exactly what I'm asking for. Sometimes we're in this habit as well too. Somebody asks for something, says, no, I'm going to give you something better. And this happens once in a while when, let's say I'm traveling, I'm out with people, I'm a foodie, so I like to go to different places and sample different foods. So somebody might ask me, where do you want to go to eat? What kind of food do you want? So I'll say, I want, a burger or something like that. They say, you know what, I'll take you somewhere even better. And they bring me to some other random, desi place. And sorry to offend any desis here, I just don't eat desi outside. I just don't do it. For me, it's ghar ka khana, you can't beat that. If desi food is cooked in the home, I'll eat it. But if it's outside, I don't want to pay for it, I'm not going to buy it. But some people think that they know better. No, I'm going to give you something better. I didn't want that, and that's actually not better than what I'm asking for. But Rasulullah says, okay, do you want something better or not? And she says, of course, because she knows that if Rasulullah is offering something better, then actually this has to be something better. Fine. Now, this is the final point. Does the answer that Rasulullah give, does it match the request that Bibi Fatima has requested? Imam Ali notices the difficulty in the household duties. He says, go and get somebody to help out with the household duties. She asks of that, that's what I need help at home. Imam Ali doesn't offer to help anymore. He already was doing something, right? We already said that. Rasulullah himself doesn't offer anything too. I'm sure he's busy, right? Spreading Islam. and doing other things. He has his own home to take care of as well too. He doesn't offer a servant, and even if we're saying, okay, something better, well, what would be something better than one servant? Oh, 2, 5, 10, right? That would be better. But none of these things. Here is a dua, or here's a tasbih. Here's a way that you can connect with Allah spiritually. Now, again, let's take Imam Ali and Rasulullah and Bibi Fatima out of this equation. Let's say it was any other situation. Let's say, for example, after the program, there were some, boxes or some heavy stuff that you needed moved, and you came and asked me, you're like, oh, Hasan, can you help us move this stuff? I said, I can do something better than that. Well, what? I said, oh, recite Ya Ali 100 times, and that'll move the boxes for you. Like, okay, well, that's not what we asked for, but thanks, I guess. Right? You'd be like, well, what's wrong with this akhun, right? What's wrong with this Maulana? So it's not the request. But what is the reason why it might sound strange to us? It's because we have a disconnect between the material and the immaterial, the physical and the beyond physical, the metaphysical. We don't understand the relationship. We think that we live in the dunya, it's a material world, so if I need strength, if I need to get rid of, let's say, certain issues that are happening physically, physiologically, then it's always about physical stuff. If I'm feeling tired, then that means I need to caffeinate, right? I need chai, I need coffee, I need something like that. That's what's going to help me. And especially in the month of Ramadan, this always happens too. I'm tired because I didn't have my caffeine, my chai, I didn't have my coffee. I don't have enough calories. That's why I'm feeling so groggy. That's why I'm hangry, and my akhlaq is bad. It's all because of calories and caffeine. But no, it's never these. Sure, it's a symptom. Maybe it's a secondary, tertiary cause, sure. But the main thing is what? It's iman. It's what's going on inside. It's the spiritual. It's the immaterial, the ghair maddi. That's what it is. So what Rasulullah here, for us who are reflecting on this, is really offering is that I will give you something that will boost your physical strength by boosting your metaphysical strength. And this is something where, sometimes when we have this sort of east versus west dichotomy, a lot of times you see that those of us who, let's say, are born, raised over here, we have a very specific physical, rational, scientific mindset. And we look kind of negatively, condescendingly at our parents or grandparents and people from the East and immigrants that, oh, they do these weird, orthodox, traditional, conservative, outdated things, and they're not living in the real world. We're living in the real world. We know what to do. Right? Some of us have this kind of arrogant mindset. Sometimes we're right. Sometimes we're right. But the one time, okay, there's many times, not the one time, but one of the times that the Eastern conservative traditional mentality has gotten it right is that whenever that group, our elders, they faced some issue in the dunya, a physical thing, they don't turn to caffeine, they don't turn to calories, they don't go to their doctors. They say, what? There's something with my iman. I need to reconnect with Allah. I need to reconnect with the Quran. I need to reconnect with the Ahlul Bayt. They say, I'm feeling down. I think I need to go for ziyarah. Nowadays, if somebody says they're feeling down, you'll say, okay, maybe you need to go to a therapist, cognitive behavioral therapy, which I'm not against necessarily, but it's not the first thing that might jump to our mind. I'm dealing with a lot of stuff right now. I got to figure out a solution. I'm listening to this podcast by so-and-so doctor, and they're telling me how to fix myself cognitively. Okay, maybe. But maybe there is a lack of recitation of Quran, which is affecting a person's physical makeup. Again, if I had more time, I'd go into the riwayat which talk about these things, and I'd go through some of the misconceptions, but I don't have time. Hopefully, we see that when somebody maintains their spirituality and they incorporate things like the tasbih of Bibi Fatima, this gives them a type of physical strength that nobody else can match. And just give you one example. Many of us, and I'll say myself as well too, because I don't want to make it sound like it's some crazy thing. It's difficult for many of us to wake up for Fajr. Let's not say it's an easy thing. I don't want to exaggerate and lie. It's difficult to wake up for Fajr. What time is Fajr over here? Yeah. So what time is sunrise? 7:28, right. There are some of us who are Fajr time prayers, some of us are sunrise time prayers, right before sunrise. It's not easy waking up in the morning after you've worked and stayed up all night and had a bunch of carbs before you went to sleep. It's not easy. It's difficult to get out of bed, especially with this temperature and how cold it is, to leave your warm blanket. It's not an easy thing to do. It takes a certain amount of inner willpower and strength, and even physical strength, you might say, right? It's tough. But you see that individuals who are 70, 80, 90 years old, these ulama, these urafa, these Sufis, they can stay up all night, even though they're a quarter of our size. They can stay up all night reading Quran, reciting special du'as, adhkar, all these different things. And they're also in the habit of Salatul Layl, Namaz al-Shab. And they'll be awake for Fajr as well too. And after Fajr, they're awake till sunrise. You might say, like, what kind of caffeine are you having to do all this? And they say, no, nothing. And in fact, they have less calories than us too. They sleep less, they eat less, they talk less. The three sort of keys to spirituality as well too, that talk about the physical. All of this, and they have more physical strength than you and I. They can stay in ruku for hours upon hours. They can stay in sujood for hours upon hours. Me, I can barely get to dua kumail before passing out, right? It's a long dua for me. But these people, they can go for a long time. We have people who are in the habit, many of us probably, I'm sure many of you can do that, where you see a certain issue that you're having, and what do? You say, you know what? I'm going to recite Ziyara Ashura for 40 days or 40 nights in a row. Even though you can go and find a dunyawi, physical, material solution maybe, but you say, no, I know that this has a connection to the metaphysical, the immaterial, and I will initially start there, and then the doors of the physical realm will open up for me. And that's how it works. So for Bibi Fatima, for example, what happened? She recites this tasbih and is in the habit of it, like many of us are, and that lessens the actual mental, physical burden for her. And then later on, it opens up two doors for them as well too. One door is the gift that's given to her later of Bibi Fizza, and then another door that opens up through the wasila of Mir al-Mu'mineen when they get qambar in the house. So they don't just get servants in the house, now they get more mu'mineen in the house, increasing the level of ibadah in the house. So both the physical have been alleviated and the spiritual in the household has increased as well too. So these are just, again, some of the examples we wanted to give. Now let me just, forgive me, I just went over time, but let me summarize and we'll end. So we wanted to reanalyze and look at the history of how this tasbih was given. We looked first at the perspective of Imam Ali alayhi salam as a wali and a husband. We said the job of a husband and a father is not just physically taking care of the house, but also emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. I, as a father, as a husband, I need to make sure that all of the well-being, the holistic well-being is taken care of in the household. I have to look out for that. I have to be aware. I have to know what's going on in the outside world to try to solve all these problems that are happening in my house with whatever resources Allah has put in my disposal. Women, wives are not meant to do everything. We have to, as best as we can, to try to lessen their burdens. We said that Imam Ali in his wisdom sees and knows that the relationship between Bibi Fatima and Rasulullah is better. So he could go and ask himself, but he has wisdom to know that when there's a better relationship and a better chance of success, that's the way that it has to go. So sometimes I don't have to do something. If I know somebody's better at something, I should have them do it. Or vice versa, the other way. I might know that I might succeed and might be better at something because I'm skilled and trained in it. So I'll take the burden away from somebody and I'll try to do it myself instead. And then we said that Bibi Fatima, when noticing Rasulullah was already busy, she swallowed her pride and her ego and realized that the community, Islam's needs are greater than mine. We remember that for our own communities as well, that my needs should never supersede the needs for the community. And finally, we mentioned for Rasulullah that he shows us you don't just give respond, gift somebody what they're asking for. You give better than what they're asking. And you ask too, do you want something even better than what you have asked for? You suggest it to them and you offer it up and hopefully to take care of their needs. And the final point, as a reminder for us, hopefully we are, in the habit of reciting something like Tasbih Fatima and many other du'as, reciting Quran, all these things, not just for a bunch of reward and points that we're getting in the akhirah, but because they have a direct influence and effect, a positive effect on our physical well-being, because it starts with our immaterial and metaphysical well-being. Forgive me once again for going over time. I only had one night, so I had to make use of it. You don't want to invite me again, that's okay too. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with all of you. Forgive me if I said anything which was offensive or wasn't explained properly. If anything was beneficial, all khair comes from Allah. And we ask through the wasila of the Ahlul Bayt, and specifically through the haqq and the right of Sayyida Fatimah alayhi salam, that all of us are able to use them really, not just pretending, but really use them as role models. All of us here especially to use Sayyida Fatimah alayhi salam as a role model, because she's not just for women, she's for men as well. For anybody who's trying to gain greater ma'rifah of Allah, to gain ma'rifah of Rasulullah, to gain ma'rifah of Maulana Ali, and to understand even the other imams, they themselves have said, you have to understand our mother Fatima in order for you to understand all of us as well. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ahli baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.